They think about, they're chasing something. I want a bigger business. I want more money. I want this. I want that. Great. But do you really? What is it that you love about what you do? And you and I are very fortunate because we love what we do, but a lot of people don't. They've had a certain education or background or whatever. They're like, I put my time in. I'm keeping this career. I don't care if I'm miserable.
Welcome to Endless Coffee Cup, a regular discussion of marketing news, culture, and media for our complex digital lifestyle. Join Matt Bailey as he engages in conversation to find insights beyond the latest headlines and deeper understanding for those involved in marketing. Grab a cup of coffee, have a seat, and thanks for joining.
Well, hello and welcome, dear listener, to another episode of the Endless Coffee Cup. I'm your host, Matt Bailey, and as always, bringing you a lot of great guests. And seeing as though I'm recording this at the end of the year, but you're probably going to hear it at the beginning of the year. And of course, one of our great network associates in the Marketing Podcast Network is Deb Eckerling, or Deborah Eckerling. I'm sorry, I want to make sure I get that right. But you go by the Deb method. Deb Eckerling is all about goals, goal setting, how to make goals work for you. She has the DEB method, which I absolutely love, that you can make the method out of your initials. Deb, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing great because I get to hang out with you and I get to talk about goals. I mean, talk about win-win. And yeah, you can call me Deb, Deborah. I answer to anything except for Debbie, because when I hear that, I look for the 12-year-old.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and we were just talking pre-show, like this is your busy season. People are thinking about 2024. They're thinking about what they want to accomplish in the year. So let me throw first a real easy question. Why goals? Why goal setting? Why is this such a, people think about it, they plan about it. What is it that makes this such an effective method of planning for the future?
Well, I have to be honest. I only talk about goal setting in December and January because everybody else does. I actually talk about it all year round because I believe that every week, every day, every week, every month is a perfect opportunity to rethink your life and make plans. We all deserve these happy, fulfilled lives, and life happens. So and I always say, people can utilize me, my book, whatever, Deb method, when life throws curveballs at you, or you just want to embrace change. So whether it is by choice or by circumstance, and choice and circumstance don't just happen at the beginning of the year. But I think that there's that whole, everybody's doing it. Okay, let's do goals. But so many people do goals wrong. They think about, they're chasing something. I want a bigger business. I want more money. I want this. I want that. Great. But do you really? What is it that you love about what you do? And you and I are very fortunate because we love what we do. But a lot of people don't. They've had a certain education or background or whatever. They're like, I put my time in. I'm keeping this career. I don't care if I'm miserable. And that's like, what? That's just not okay. So what I say is, if you can't change your professional life, and a lot of people can't, what goals can you set aside from that, whether they're personal or side hustle or whatever, to bring joy into your life and let it leak over the professional life that you may or may not love? So I think I just said a whole bunch of things, and I don't know if I answered your question, but does that really matter?
I love that approach. Okay. It matters somewhat. But I love the angle
I can try again.
I love the angle you took, because that is such, consultants do so well at understanding how to make the problem bigger. So that, which is what you did. You brought goals into every area of life, ultimately to bring joy, which I think that's great starting point. A great starting point to bring joy into what we do into some way. So explain that. Explain bringing joy and how that affects us by setting, and we can dig into goals a little bit on that, but you've got an outcome here that you're setting before people. And I think it's really interesting that you're starting with that.
Well, and my big soapbox is, you can't get what you want unless you know what that is. And so many people, they just don't. We're all busy, right? But I say gift yourself the time and energy to think about what's going to bring you joy, what's going to bring you happiness. So, and I'm sure we'll talk about the Deb method later, but the D in the Deb method is determine your mission. So to get what you want, you need to know what that is. So when you think about that life you want, what is it? And it could be some professional goal, it could be a personal goal, it could be a mixture. What is that one thing that when you think about, you just can't help but smile? Start there and then build whatever it is you need to do to turn it into a reality.
That's cool. I like that because, I mean, that has so many avenues you can go down with that. And, being in sort of the consulting role with businesses and working out, it's interesting. We have to work on goals personally, but we also have to work on goals in the business world. And I'm absolutely amazed how many people confuse what a goal is. Like you said, there's the I wish we had, and I find, businesses, they're chasing the latest shiny object because they think it's going to fulfill something, but yet they have a hard time identifying what exactly it's going to fulfill or how. That's what I asked them. What's the line between adopting AI and your success? Where's the line there? Where's point B in that line? And they have a very hard time being able to describe that. On the individual level, are people in that same gap? And like they have that, but drawing that line is difficult?
Well, I think so. And just Deb a little bit more. So you start with the visualization and then you write your current bio. Aspirational, what is your current bio as highlighting the things that you love the most? And then think about your future bio. What do you want your bio to say about you a year from now, 3 years from now, whatever? But to write it in the present tense in the third person, as if you're reading an article about you or a book jacket cover or whatever. So you kind of take an inventory of where you are and where you're going. And that brings us to the mission statement. So all businesses have the mission statement and the vision statement as the crux, but do they really pay attention to it? And then I say, your business has one. Why wouldn't you have one? So whether you are the CEO or an entrepreneur or someone who works for a company, what are you all about? What do you do? What makes you unique? How do you help? And from there, you create a motto. And I am getting to a point. So in my case, it's to use my background, systems, book workshops, etc., to help people figure out what they want and how to get it so they can live a more fulfilled life and in turn help others, etc., etc. Long, clunky, absolutely. That's where the motto comes in. So my motto is goal setting simplified. So everything I do, everything I create is with that simplified in mind. So therefore, whether you're an individual or a business, whatever that tagline is, that's all you're about, that is your litmus test. That's your decision tree. Okay, we want to use AI in our business. Great. What is your mission and motto? And how can you make sure that is in alignment so it's win-win?
Great. So the audience that we have here at the Endless Coffee Cup, it's a lot of students. It's a lot of, I would describe both younger professionals and older professionals who are looking at what education, what steps are they going to need to get to that next level, whether it's an entrepreneurship, a side business, or even within their company, how to get that promotion, how to move forward. So that's where a lot of our audience is, right in your line with your personal goals and seeing that. So that visualization point, I think, it's a great target to start with because it's, if I want that promotion, I know exactly where it is. It's right over there. It's that office, that desk right there. But then also, a lot of students, they're trying to figure out what the next level even looks like. So they're, not even sure where they might be or where they might land. It might be a little difficult. How do you figure that out if you're trying to look beyond there, but it's a little too misty?
Well, that is where the E comes in. Explore your options. Yes, we did not plan this, but that was perfect. And your goals may change, but who you are, not so much. So that's why the mission and the motto is so important because it is that North Star, that compass, whatever analogy you like. Explore your options is where you go from, okay, this is who I am. what does that look like for the next step for me? And I've got this wonderful exercise. I call it directed journaling, which I believe is like the best all-purpose tool to figure just about anything out. And this is how it works. You want to schedule 3, 4, 5, 15-minute sessions with yourself. And you're just going to ask yourself a question or a series of related questions. What do I want? Well, I want this and that. And to do that, I need to create this and that. Or let's say you are a thought leader, an expert, whatever we want to call ourselves. I want to write a book. I want to start a blog. I want to start a podcast. What are the other options of the things that I can do to get my voice out there? And the idea is to empty your entire head onto the page, whether you're typing it or writing it. And to do this 3, 4, 5 times and then go back and read it. Start by read it once all the way through and then go back with either a highlighter or another piece of paper, whatever, but find those common themes. Because undoubtedly, something that you thought you wanted, maybe you only mentioned it twice, or something else you mentioned like 15 times and you didn't realize how attached you were to that idea. And we try and figure things out in our head all the time. So this is taking it out of your head, putting it on the page and seeing it clear as day. Okay, I'm a thought leader. I want to either write a book or start a course or create a course or start doing speaking. Okay, those are 3 very viable options. Great, let's dive in and do some research. What is it going to take? Who do I know who does these things? Or where can I get some information? Or where can I Google or whatever? Take the things that you repeated and look into it to see where you can find what's going to be a fit. For those starting their career out, it could be, I have a degree in this. What does that mean for me? Should I get a job? Well, what kind of job would be a good fit for me? Well, I could do this or that. I really want to work for this company. Ooh, who do I know works for? So just to go along with that thread, and the sky's the limit. It's just you and your thoughts, but you are, again, gifting yourself the time to do that exploration, see what options are there, do your research, and then you can really hone in, make an informed decision about what is next for you.
I love that. It's, we're not just going blind into setting some, I want to make 100 sales next year, which, okay, that's great. But I love that next step of, well, what does it take to get there? What are the activities you're doing that are helping you right now? What other activities you want to bring in or explore or develop? I don't think enough people take enough time in that step of exploring what does it take to get there and what are the other options? What are some other ways that you can rank these ideas that you can see what might be more of a fit or less of a fit?
Even what you just said, I want to make 100 sales next year. Brainstorm that. I was going to say, very easy. Again, goal setting simplified. But just to get all those thoughts out there, in the sky's the limit. And because we live in this digital age, really we're connected to just about everybody else on the planet. We're connected to any information we need, and all the people that we know other people, which is why networking is such and I put it under personal and professional goals, because the people you meet, they're not necessarily your client, but they could be a friend, or they know people, or you don't know.
Right.
So,
right.
And I also want to add like a little asterisk. If you're not sure about what your mission and motto are, you could do the same exercise. Or if you're trying to decide between, you got 2 job offers and you don't know which one you want. So you can use this system, this directed journal exercise, for figuring just about anything out. But that really is the key to get it out of your head and onto the page. And also see who you know who knows things. If you're tuning in and we don't know each other, send me a LinkedIn request so you can be part of my world, and vice versa. Just say that this is where we met. And boom, we get to be each other's people. So another way to look at it, do you want me to go into brainstorming your path, taking action, or are we not there yet?
All right, we're getting there. What does it do? Let me ask you a real quick question. What does it do to get that stuff out of our brain and on paper? Why is that so important?
It's important because you are making yourself a priority, which people they don't do. We are busy. We are. And you are, I am, everybody who's listening, I'm sure we all have. And this is, whether it's the end of the year, beginning of the year, or any time of year, we're all juggling a lot of different hats. And especially if you've got a business and or a day job or whatever, and a side hustle and family and obligations, there's a lot of things that are fighting for attention. And it just starts with, I choose me. I am going to, even if it's 15 minutes a week, and I know that sounds like very little. It's very little. It's doable. It's 15 minutes more a week than you were gifting yourself before. And then the other thing is, you want to treat this time the same way you would treat an appointment with a boss or a client or a friend. It's you. You should be your own BFF and hold that in such value. The other thing, and I'm skipping like 20 different things I usually say between now and there, is look at your schedule and see what's feasible. If what is feasible is 15 minutes, let's say Sunday afternoon between 1 and 1:15, after lunch, everybody's quiet, make an ongoing appointment with yourself for Sunday afternoon. And this is your me time, your planning time. Do people still put those things on the door? Don't bug me. Don't bug me. I'm thinking, I don't know. But it's to answer your question, people just, they don't prioritize their future. And if you want to prioritize your future, you need to give yourself the time now to get where you want to go.
That is amazing. And part of that too, when you first started and said, take a couple times a day, just 15 minutes just to journal and get things out of your head. What a mental health break that is. That was my first thought, because, just to take 10 to 15 minutes out of the day and just, that alone, I think, is an exercise that is so worth it. And we've lost that. I think I saw a web comic went around a couple weeks ago of someone sitting in an office and someone says, "What are you doing?" And they said, "I'm thinking." And they're like, "Why aren't you working?" We've lost that contemplation. We've lost that time just to consider what we're doing and even think about how to do it better, or one of the best things I have started doing is taking that 10 minutes first thing in the day. And what are my priorities for today? What didn't I do yesterday? That is now at the top of my list. And that immediately calms me for what's coming up. But I agree with you. We don't take enough time to reset that internal brain activity, and taking those times to journal like that would be just a powerful exercise to think that through. So I really like that.
And don't underestimate the power of thinking. If all you do is think, it's cheating. So don't only think, but find things. What is meditation for you? Is it running? Is it folding laundry? I am a reformed non-cook. I used to think that cooking took way too much time and energy, and then I got an Instant Pot, and I discovered you could put in ingredients and then go do something, and then you're rewarded with a meal. That was my gateway. Now, and yes, I love my Instant Pot. I love my air fryer. I love chopping vegetables. I love doing things in the kitchen, because you can't be on your phone while you're chopping vegetables. You can't be on your computer. You cannot be obsessing that an email you're waiting for. Well, you can, but anyway, if you're waiting for an email, rather than stress out about it, what is something you can do that's going to take you away from the devices, that's going to refresh? And I love cooking because, again, you're rewarded with food. But is there something that you love to do that takes you out of your head, that takes you away from the electronics? I do workshops on goal setting simplified, event outcome optimization, and cooking for productivity. So those are my 3 topics. Obviously, mostly it's the first 2, goal setting simplified, which is Deb, and event outcome optimization is utilizing the principles of goal setting simplified for attending events. But because I became, we'll say it, obsessed with cooking, especially from someone who loved to dial for dinner just like 6 years ago, there's just so much power And there's so many different things you could do throughout the cooking process that's going to enhance your life. If I'm working on an article and I can't figure out the lead, I'll go bake something.
I love it. That is actually my outlet as well. It's such I know it's rewarding. Yes, you get food, but it's one of those things that, and I don't know what, I think I find this a lot, especially with people who spend most of their day on a computer, that the work product that you create is digital. And so there's no tangible, there's nothing I've created with my hands. And so cooking has always been my I tell people I do it to relax because everything else is, need it today, need to finish it. And there's rarely anything I could print it off and hold it, but that doesn't count. Whereas a meal, something I've prepared, it's taken time, it's taken my brain out of work to just have fun and prepare. And so, yeah, I'm with you. The cooking is a great way to stand off to the side and give that brain a rest, but also give it something else to kind of chew on, to use the metaphor.
So my book, Your Goal Guide, won an IBBY, an Independent Book Award. This was a couple years ago. So I'm thinking it was 2021, and they kept delaying when they were releasing the results. And I got this email, they're like, Friday, it's definitely going to be Friday. So Friday, I was like, refreshing. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'll go make waffles. And I made waffles. And by the time the waffles were done, I had gotten the email about the book. So it could be for good reasons too. If you're just waiting for news and you just want to take a breath, it could be that. Or it can, another philosophy I have is, if people cancel an appointment with you, don't fill it with work, fill it with something that's going to bring you joy, because that's going to, you're going to be happy. If you look at missed appointments as opportunities to work on your side project, passion project, do something fun, have a phone call with a loved one, whatever, just don't fill the time with work. Then you're really going to roll with the punches a lot better.
Absolutely. That is something I have practiced for a long time. And it is so rewarding because it's almost like you get excited when someone cancels, because it's like, it's me time. I can, now I can do this. Now I can, like you said, it's time. I can do nothing if I choose, but there is an advantage to viewing it that way rather than feeling that sense of busyness all day long. Okay, are we at the B yet in the DEB method?
We can be. I'm more than happy to jump. So we have determined your mission. You can't get what you want unless you know what that is. Explore your options. Great, this is what I want. These are the possibilities. And then, okay, this is where I see my future. So then you get to brainstorm your path. And that is, again, take all of your goals out of your head and put them on the page. So you want to make a laundry list of everything you need to do, not just that particular goal, but the things, personal goals as well, long-term goals, short-term goals, easy goals, because you want to be able to check things off, and then the stretch goals, and then divide and conquer. So you want to make your laundry list and then divide it into personal and professional goals, and then long-term, short-term, and then put everything in fun little categories. So it's action items lead to benchmarks. Benchmarks lead to completing short-term goals. Short-term goals lead to getting to those long-term goals. So for example, long-term goal, I want to be a New York Times bestselling author. Great. Short-term goal, write a book. Benchmarks, or get a book published. We can even say that. So get a book published. That's probably better. So within them, benchmark is to write a book. Second is to get an agent or decide to self-publish. Then the third is write a book proposal. Now, since I've got a really heavy content background, I am a huge fan of book proposals, whether you're going to self-publish or send it out to get published traditionally, because especially for nonfiction books, which I'm guessing is really your audience, it's the blueprint. So it's what makes your idea unique and what's your vision of getting it out in the world. Then you put your bio, your marketing, sample chapters, whatever. That document's going to help you, whether you're sending it out for possible either representation or publication, or you're using it for yourself as a roadmap for your book release. So all of these benchmarks will help you get a book published as one of your short-term goals to becoming that best-selling author. And so within, let's take the writing the book benchmark, outline chapters, first draft, second draft, or if you're doing for nonfiction, you also need that book proposal because you sell it off of the book proposal. So we've got that in there, but also there's that marketing element. Need to create a website. Okay, what benchmarks are within that? So it sounds, the words are coming out of my mouth. It feels like it sounds a little bit more convoluted. I usually go with something easy, like short-term goal is become a thought leader. And one of the goals is to have a website. And within that website, one benchmark is figuring out all the technical specs. Another is figuring out your branding, what kind of content. And then the third is creating the content. And then when you put them all together, boom, you've got a website/blog. So yeah, that's way less convoluted, but really any goal, you're going to need a website. So that's going to help you.
Hey everyone, this is Matt, and thanks for listening. Just a quick break in the middle of the podcast here to let you know there's a couple ways that you can connect with us. The first is learn.sitelogic.com. That's the learning site where you can see courses on analytics, courses on digital marketing across paid search, SEO, multiple disciplines. And then also, you can connect with us on Slack. Go to Slack if you're there and look for us at endlesscoffeecup.slack.com. Connect with us. I'd love to hear from you. Hear what ails you in the realm of digital marketing. Are there courses you need, information that you'd like to hear, or maybe some past guests that you'd like to hear more from? Thanks again for being a listener of the Endless Coffee Cup, and I look forward to hearing from you. Have you ever thought about consulting for analytics? Because you've got it. I mean, I've been working in analytics for almost 30 years now. And what you just outlined is what I wish more companies would understand is you've got your long-term goal. And so I will set this out. Okay. Is it to become more profitable? Is it to increase sales? Because those are two vastly different things. And they require different short-term goals. They require different benchmarks. So you need to decide which is it, because if you go for profit, we're going to load a whole lot more benchmarks on this. But it's to start with that very simple. What is it? More sales, more registrations, more profit. Let's start there. There's your long-term goal. But then for the short-term goal, there's 5 to 7, maybe a dozen short-term goals that each will support. And you can fulfill one or two of those, and it will affect your long-term goal. But and that's where I help people. What is the direct line that if you do this short-term goal, it automatically contributes to your long-term goal? And so just helping to build that hierarchy, which you just did. And then, okay, here's our short-term goal. Here's our benchmarks, or in analytics, we're going to call them KPIs. Here's your key performance. And I have to explain to people that just because you meet your KPIs, that doesn't mean that it will impact your long-term goal. There's not a direct line. It just tells you how well you're doing to meeting the goal you have, but there's very rarely a direct line on those things. So, and then after the KPIs, there's your metrics that they don't mean much, but they're the big numbers everyone likes seeing on reports, but they're actually the bottom of the pyramid here. So that's what I love how you walk through that, because I'm just seeing analytics in my head and how many times I've had to explain the hierarchy of, and we would call them measurements, but these are goals because you want to accomplish the same thing.
And that's why what I do is different than just about any other, I'm going to do air quotes, goal expert. You can't get what you want unless you know what that is. You need to start with that mission, that motto, and everything builds from there.
Well, you outlined just an incredible plan. And the more detail you put to it, like you did, I think the more tangible it makes it, the more, now you've got more things to check off your list. But seeing that relationship of how they all work together, and today I'm going to work on this, you see that progress moving towards there. So you were putting together a complete marketing plan. I love it.
Is project management and communications.
There you go. There you go. I like it. Now it makes sense.
And they all work together. The other thing that you just said, which I love, is it's not all or nothing. There, especially with entrepreneurs who have a side hustle or thought consultants who are thought leaders. I don't know. Do we like that word this week? We always have the LA word is multiple projects at various stages of development. That's fine. It's actually good because if you are burned out on one thing, you can jump to something else, and it's all in service of getting to the finish line. Mm-hmm. Or the next finish line before you start your next race. But if you've got multiple things that you're working on, there's always something you can be working on. And let's go back to the joy factor. If you're feeling like, oh my goodness, what am I doing? Remind yourself why you love what you do. And if you don't, find something to love within what you are doing. Because when you love what you do, it shows. When you don't love what you do, it really shows.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes, it absolutely it does. Yeah, it becomes a detriment, and to not just to yourself, to those around you. So it's absolutely. But yeah, finding joy in what you do, and that's a thing. There is always, I just saw the other day a story of someone who was in the digital space. They enjoyed it, but they just to fill some time, they started working at Starbucks, and they realized they absolutely love that better. They love the interaction with people. They were trying to say it's not just a service job. Why should I feel guilty about it? I actually love dealing with the people every day and having regulars. And it was just amazing to see that transition. Like, I've been looking at this job my whole life, but I did this and I'm actually happier. So it was a real interesting lesson there about sometimes what we think we want doesn't always look like what we think it does.
Agreed. And a lot of people, and I was having this conversation earlier today as well. During the pandemic, a lot of people found hobbies.
Yes.
They started side hustles. They learned languages. Maybe they taught themselves HTML. They upped their skill level. And so one of the things that I do is I will go in and I will lead my goal setting workshops for teams, frequently like right before the annual review, because that gives a nice temperature. Okay, what are our wins? Great. What do you want to do for next year? But part of it too is the boss doesn't have time to have these conversations with the entire team. So I get to, what is it that you discover that you love? And how can we incorporate it into your job so your job doesn't feel like a job? So it feels like you're contributing to something bigger than yourselves, because the boss wants most bosses, they want their people to be happy and productive, right? Or they want them to be productive. They're going to be more productive if they're happy. Great. Let's identify what things that they can be doing to bring that happy energy into their work. And then everybody wins. I remember years ago, I worked in publishing years ago, and I was doing events for Barnes & Noble, and then I got a job in the client services department with the full intention of getting to the production side, which I did. Actually, it was a trend. I think after 3 people transitioned over after me, they stopped letting people apply for jobs in the creative that were brought in from the client services. But the point is, I know I had one. I love this idea. I knew that working for a publishing company was the right fit for me, but I also knew this way in was going to help me get to one of my goals, working for them. So sometimes I came with the skill set, but I just remember my point. Sometimes you acquire skill sets and the department you're in is not a fit forever. Or maybe you thought you didn't want management, but you learned about yourself that, hey, maybe you would be a great team leader. Some people take jobs to have it as a job, which is fine, but you never know what can come of it unless you leave yourself open to the possibilities.
Absolutely. That is the advice I give to my kids. I give it to people all the time. That, yes, you can take a job, but learn something. Learn something from it. You may not, and I look back on some of the jobs where, you know what, I knew going in, or I learned very quickly, this is not my career path, but they are paying you to work there. They're paying you to learn. And one of the things I did, you will love this, I journaled what I didn't like about management. Anytime I had a boss that did, it was just like, I felt like that's out of line, I would write this down. And I think not that I ever had in mind that I was going to start a business, but I had great management. I had poor management. I had great bosses. I had very poor bosses. I had a nice little journal of, if I have a company, here's things that I will do for my employees. Here's things that I will not do, because I've seen what it does to me. I've seen what it does to others. And so in that way, I like to reposition it as, you're being paid to learn, not just the job, you're being paid to learn what it is you like, something that you can take, that you can add. Like, as you said earlier, something you can add to your skill set, something that you can add that, and there are many jobs I look back on, I was able to take something from there. I didn't use it for 5 years, but it came around. But every job is an experience opportunity. It's something, you take something from it. It scares me sometimes when people tell me, I got my degree, I'm going to start a business. I'm like, no, or I got certified in SEO, I'm going to start an agency. No. Go work, go get experience, go feel what it's like. And because I tell people, when you're at an agency, you're going to have 20 accounts. You're going to learn 20 different ways to do the same thing. So I love that, what you brought about, because it just reminded me of so many times I was miserable, I didn't like it, but I learned something. And that something is something I was able to take to another position.
I started out working for Barnes & Noble, and that was my first job out of college. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to make it as a freelance writer. I loved working in the bookstore so much. I went from part-time to full-time like 2 weeks later. And from there, they were hiring an events person at another store. So I went over there. From there to publishing, then I moved to LA. So everything that you do is going to lead to something else. I love telling people, I used to run events and now I do events. I was an events person for Barnes & Noble. Nothing made me happier than when I did my first book signing in a Barnes & Noble in Los Angeles when my book came out.
Oh, amazing.
Talk about your full circle.
Amazing. That's so cool. I'll tell you my story is, I got out when I graduated college with a journalism degree. I knew I didn't want to be in journalism. I did an internship and it was like, okay, that was good. And it was more PR, but then I got a job right out of college and it was as a sports reporter for one of our local papers. And it ran me ragged because all the sports are in the evening. And I tell people, this is before email. And I would have to go home, write up what happened, and I would have to hand deliver it because I didn't have a fax machine. Those were expensive. I would have to drive over to the paper and drop it by 2:30 a.m. And so that was my weekend. That was most nights. And then when you read it the next day, I was like, it's not even what I wrote. It's so hacked up. And they weren't there. The editor wasn't there. But I did that for about 6 months. And it taught me, how to write quickly, how to put together a story, how to do all these things. And later, through just different events, I started building websites. And I built websites based on the principles of what I learned in journalism: headline, subheading, bullet points, how to structure the story, and immediately started getting rankings in search engines. And that's when I realized that how you set up the HTML, that's how search engines are evaluating your page. And so that's why I tell people, you learn things that you don't know you're going to learn, and they're going to come in so handy.
One of the things that I find the most hilarious is, and I've freelanced, I've always been writing through everything. And as a non-cook, I am also a food writer and food podcaster. 20-something Deb would laugh, off if I had told her that I would be doing this now. Because that Deb, she also had issues with cooking.
Well, and that's, I think, the beautiful thing is, as you said, you build this plan, but along the way, you may find something, like you said, that grabs your attention, that forces you in another direction, and then you do this all again. And so it's a great way, I think, really to find your path and to forge that path.
Well, one thing I can say is I've always known that I was a writer. Ever since I learned to tell stories, I knew that I loved telling stories. And a high school me was writing all fiction. Real life me got her freelance writing break. It's back when I lived in Chicago, maybe a week after I finished my first draft of my first screenplay from my first, which I took for funny never. But then I got my freelance break and I was writing nonfiction, and it was just a really good fit for me. But growing up, I always knew that whatever I did, I wanted to have an impact on others. I wanted to help inspire and encourage, because isn't that, first of all, what a storyteller does, but isn't that what we're put on the planet to do? So it goes back to the core of who you are does not change, but how you share yourself and what you know with the world. And especially we live through analog to digital. So how you share that with the world absolutely changes.
That is absolutely the case, is we are put here to leave it a little better than what we found it. And so that is, I love that. I love that. My mission statement, my motto is to build the next generation of digital marketers to be leaders. And so that is, how we approach the education. That's how we approach the development of people to not just, do well, but to succeed and exceed in what they do. So that is, I love the motto, because as soon as you went there, I was like, yes, we got it.
Awesome. Okay, gold stars for you. And beyond goal setting simplified, my mission is to change goal culture in and out of the workplace. A lot of people think of goal, it's a 4-letter word. Yes, it is a 4-letter word. It has so much possibility. It's not a bad thing to want to build and create. You can call it goals, you can call it intentions, you can call it whatever you want. But if you've got dreams for your life, own it and then create a plan to turn the dreams into reality, because it's within your power.
Okay, so you brought up something, and we've got a little bit of time here. Let's talk about goal culture in the workplace, because that opens up an entire, maybe we don't have enough time for this, Deb, but let's talk about, the culture. I mean, because that's everything. That determines so much of what a business is all about, and it determines the happiness of the employees. I mean, how do you shift the culture within a company?
One person at a time, right?
Oh.
And this is really one thing that I find kind of challenging. I love it when I send a pitch to speak at a company and they write back and they say, oh, we have a person. Great. You have a person in charge of goals for your company. That is like the epitome. This is what we want. If you have a company that really cares so much about your team that you want to help them do better, be better, those are the ones that are going to flourish. Mm-hmm. If you've got, and we've all seen both ends of the spectrum, if you've got the tyrannical boss, do things my way, great. You're going to be stuck in the last century. Good luck. But if we learned, well, I'm sure we learned lots from the pandemic. One thing is we're connected everywhere. You do not need to go into an office to be productive. You have this extra, if you no longer commute, you have extra time. So what are you going to use that for? And if you've got a boss who says, use that time for you to up your skills, to start a side hustle, to do whatever, something that brings you joy, so you're a happier employee, then that's the apex.
I love that. So let's say the boss isn't there yet. How do you affect another person? How do you subtly, sneakily start to change culture by working on another person?
You need an advocate. It does not need to be the boss, but you need someone to say, I love working here. I can do better. Let's make a plan.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Deb, I have thrown some amazing questions at you because I can tell I'm making you work here on this.
I've had people ask me the opposite question, which is, what do you do if someone is not into their goals? And I say, they're not my client yet, because you need to want it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Things like this, creating the life you want, takes time, it takes energy. Doesn't need a lot. It can. But when you start small, and so we're at the beginning of the year, just pick one thing that you want to celebrate at the end of the year and work on it a little bit each week. You are going to be amazed because you are going to accomplish it. Just dedicating a little bit of time, it all adds up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I see it almost every day. I've got kids in sports. And so, especially, and they're runners. And so their life is made up of goals. And they're distance runners. So, all of this, but at the beginning of the year, this is the time I want to reach. And the coach builds a plan on here's how we're going to reach that. And so, yeah, it's got to be something that there is some self-direction to that. There has to be an initiative on your own part that here's where I want to be. And like you said, it doesn't take much. But building that plan, taking that time, so critical. And I will fiercely advocate writing it down. Writing it down makes all the difference in the world.
Can I tell you one of my favorite stories?
Absolutely.
It's not even a favorite story. It's just a good story based on what you just said. A friend of mine, this was several years ago, but it's so vivid. We were talking about goals and she said, Deb, I write down all my goals on a piece of paper. I put it in the bottom drawer, and at the end of the year, I read it, and I'm pleasantly surprised if I accomplished anything. It took me a minute to recover, and I said, do me a favor. This year, why don't you put the list up somewhere where you look at it and see what happens? And of course, she was way more successful.
Yes. Put them on the mirror. That's where they belong. Yes.
And it doesn't have to be a long list. Pick 3 personal, 3 professional goals that you want to get done this year. Easy. Make sure it's in alignment with who you are and who you want to become. You'll get there.
Yep. Absolutely. That's my whiteboard here in my office. The top corner is reserved for our goals, and they're there all year round. That corner does not get erased. That's exactly where it is. And that is also what I challenge businesses when we come in and start looking at their analytics and what they want to accomplish. That part of that board never changes. That's where everyone comes in. That's always there. It's always visual. And I'm sure you run into that with businesses as well. We've got our goals. They're on a spreadsheet. It's somewhere in the cloud. But it's got to be visual.
Find a couple places to be putting those goals. And it could be on where's my phone? It could be on your screensaver, on your phone. It could be your wallpaper on your computer. It can be on your fridge. Where do you go that you're going to take a look and you're going to see it's really funny. So you point to your left, I point to my right. This is where I have all of the things that I recommend people do. This is my board. It's got my visual representation, my goals, my little ticklers to keep me motivated. I have that space. And if you don't have somewhere publicly, if you share an office or what, put in a folder, put in your top drawer. So every time you open that drawer, you get a reminder of what you're working towards.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Deb, this has been a great conversation. I love talking with you always, and I'd love to bring you on the show more because I feel like our conversations need to be moved more into a recording. But thank you so much. This has been a great, just a reminder too on my side and being able to put these things together. I always give people a chance to do this. Where can people find you, Deb, if they want to know more about the Deb Method or to bring you in about a goal setting session?
I am the Deb Method everywhere. You can go to thedebmethod.com or email me deb@thedebmethod.com. Gotta love the consistent branding.
That is amazing.
If you want to go on your own goal journey, you could pick up a copy of your goal guide, a roadmap for setting, planning, and achieving your goals. The first half of the book will take you through the Deb Method, and then the second half is strategies for success. And like I said, just reach out, send me an email, connect on LinkedIn, and let me know how I can help you figure out what you want and make a plan to turn it into reality, whether it's for yourself or your business.
Fantastic. And I will have all those links on the show page, dear listener, so you will be able to find Deb just a click away. Deb, thank you so much. I've so enjoyed this conversation.
I did as well. Thank you, Matt. This is, like I said, how could it not be fun? I get to hang out with you and talk about goals. So
Yes,
thank you for
absolutely.
having me.
Oh, well, thank you. And yeah, I look forward to being on your show in the near future here. So, dear listener, not only can you find her here, but as a fellow marketing podcast network associate, you can find her links. I'll have a link to her podcast as well. And Deb, you do it a little different. You've got panel shows, a little different than the one-on-one. How is that?
Oh, it's so much fun. So every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific, I bring in 3 guests to dive into the topic of the week. And because I start the new year in December, I do New Year, New You shows at the end of the year and then the first month of the year. And our topics range their entrepreneurship, their creativity, their work-life balance, anything and everything. We're going to have you on talking about conversations coming up in January. And for me, it's fun because not only do I get to hang out with cool people, I get to introduce people. So unless it's on purpose, none of my guests know each other before they're brought into a panel. And it really makes for fun and interesting conversations. So that's Goal Chat Live on Mondays. And then it gets released as the Deb Show podcast through the Marketing Podcast Network.
And I will say it is a lot of fun because not knowing who else is on the panel until you're there. And I think last time I was on, it was like this serendipitous, we all have this in common. How did that happen? Well, it's Deb.
It is Deb. And I was telling you, the show I just did the other day, which was on winning to close out the year. And not only did my guests not know each other, one of the great things about having a panel show is I get to invite people back all the time. But in this case, there were no repeats. They were all 3 really new to the show. And they just had a great time. And that is the purpose. And then as we were wrapping up in the post show, they're like, we can get each other's emails, right? So I love it when I see people who've been guest on each other's shows and awesome. Do collaborations. So it's fun for them, but it's also so much fun for me because you can't reach your goals on your own. You need your people. So it's a great way to bring together awesome people.
It is, and you are fulfilling your networking mission by doing that. So that is a lot of fun. I will definitely back that up. Well, dear listener, thank you so much. It has been great to have this conversation and coffee with you, and I look forward to our next cup of coffee on the Endless Coffee Cup podcast. You've been listening to the Endless Coffee Cup. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with somebody else. And of course, please take just a moment and rate or review us at your favorite podcast service. If you need more information, contact me at sitelogicmarketing.com. Thanks again for being such a great listener.